the confrontation between Yaakov and Esav after 2 decades of being apart is now finally coming to a head. And this is the climax of the story we've been reading about for 2 portions. Page 202, chapter Lamed Bet, which is 32, which is the Hebrew word Lev, which is heart. So Lev is always considered to be a special number in Judaism. Tell me what's not a special number in Judaism. Yeah. So you can actually go through this on another week, not today, but how special so many different numbers are. So if your vice is the what's the table called in the casino? Yeah, the roulette. You're not going to get anywhere because every number has a special significance. So it's not like 18 is extra special. They'll tell you 17 is extra special because it's the numerical value of Tov, which means good. And then you have 26 is Hashem's name, and 27 is the word Zach, which means pure, and 28 is Koach, which means strength. So every number has a beautiful meaning to it. Lev is the heart, though, because the heart and soul, as King Solomon says, what is the one request that I ask for Hashem? One request that I would ask for. Lev ladat, a knowing heart, a heart that feels, a heart that is connected, a heart that is able to have compassion, mercy, generosity. And the essence of a Jew is to have a lev, a very strong heart for people around them and Hashem. So Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim. So Yaakov now is on his way back to Israel, and he says, you know what, I'm going to send some messengers to check out what's going on with my brother. Now, we spoke last week about Yaakov has messengers that he would bring from Israel that went up the ladder, and then he had new angels that came and accompanied him to outside of Israel. And so he was very in tune with the angels that accompany. I don't think we said this last week. Shalom Aleichem, that we say at the beginning of a Friday night meal. You know what we're doing and why we're singing that song? Welcoming the angels. What kind of angels are coming? There's angels, but why are we singing only about angels then and not any other time of the week? Because we bring angels home with us on Shabbos, on Friday night, to accompany us. So here's the question. We say, Shalom Aleichem, welcome to the angels. Malachei HaShalom, angels of peace. Then we say, Boachem l'shalom, come inside the house, stay here. And then we say, Barchuni l'shalom, bless us with peace. Bless us. Ask the angels to give us a blessing. And then we say, Tzeichem l'shalom, see you later. Go. You can leave now. What? Why are we kicking them out? Why are we kicking out the angels? Right, stay for Shabbos, continue to bless us. So the explanation is that you have 2 types of angels that are with you all the time. You have the weekday angels and you have the Shabbos angels, 2 totally different angels. The weekday angels are busy to try and help you succeed at work and get through the minutiae on the day-to-day. And then you have the Shabbos angels that are there to bring you peace. Malachei HaShalom, not Malachei HaSharet. They're not serving you, they're bringing you peace. And so you're saying goodbye to the weekday angels. Tzeichem l'shalom is not to the Shabbat angels. There you welcome them. Tzeichem l'shalom is other angels that have been here all week. You can go now because we have your replacements that's here and that's blessing us. So Yaakov had the same thing. We spoke about the power of prayer last week and how your angels are created by your going up. And then Hashem sends you the brachot back down, which is the uniqueness of the ladder and why the angels said they started from below and then came down afterwards. When every other mitzvah starts from above and comes down to us, and then we send it back to Hashem. But in addition to that, Yaakov was also leaving Israel. So the angels that were accompanying him from Israel all that time headed back up to Hashem. And then the new angels that were going to take him outside of Israel to the exile that he was going to be in were new angels that were not as holy, but still very hardworking angels, and they were going to accompany him out. So now he's got these angels with him that he's had with him the whole time. Now you and me, we can't feel those angels. I sometimes say, my kids are really behaving well on Shabbos and Friday night at the beginning of the meal. They dress nicely and they look, they say, oh, here are the Shabbos angels. Shabbos angels, it's the first time I didn't see you like this. The whole week you're like running around, go to bed, do your homework, brush your teeth, doing the things that are playing, being wild and silly. And then comes Friday night, you look and you say, you know what, these are really beautiful angels. So you could look at them, but most of us can't detect them. But Yaakov was able to. And we're going to see that Yaakov was even able to have a wrestling match with one of them. We're going to see that in a bit. Hopefully we'll have time for that because that's an amazing story. And he saw the angels that were coming back with him. He said, can you go ahead, please? Could you go ahead and find out if Esav is upset at me, if Esav is coming, if Esav is going to still make some problems for me? That's how in touch with his angels he was. So it's important for us to know this because we have, for the mitzvahs that we do and for the Shabbos that we keep, we have these spiritual sort of representatives around us that are doing what we need to do. I don't know if you realize this, but babies, it's getting a bit off topic, but babies, when they're born, there's hundreds, maybe thousands of ways that a baby could, God forbid, be injured or worse. When one corner, one little accident, one thing to choke on, and it's scary, but it's amazing at the same time. And then you realize that literally that first year of life, that baby went through miracle after miracle after miracle, not to have had accidents and not to have had, injuries. And you realize there's a special angel. Now I saw it firsthand with my kid who fell off a bed and missed the corner by a millimeter, running on the street and just grabbed him before he got to the road. And at certain times you see the angels very busy, just stopping the kid from hurting themselves, but it's clearly an angel. And so we hope to be able to recognize it up to a point. Yaakov saw it straight out. So Rashi says, on that first point, look at the first thing. Having successfully fled his father-in-law Lavan, Jacob prepared to confront his brother. His mother Rebekah had told him that even though Esav harbored his long-standing hatred against him, the passage of time had softened it somewhat. So Jacob hoped that a conciliatory message would assuage it altogether. He did not risk sending human messengers, because he knew Esav might harm them. Instead, Jacob dispatched angels as messengers ahead of him to his brother Esav. These angels assumed human form to the mission of Esav going to the land. And long story short, they come back and they say, Yaakov, you're in trouble. Not only is he not calm, not only has the years not made him more assuage his anger towards you, more mellow, right? But rather, he's gotten seemingly even more vitriolic and more angry because he's got 400 men and he's on the march. He's coming towards you. So at that point, after the report at the bottom of page 203, 202, at that point, Yaakov prepares himself for the worst. Now, what does a Jew do when they're preparing themselves for the worst? That's one thing. You can't just do one thing. That's what we learned from Yaakov. Don't put all your eggs in one basket when you're facing a dilemma. Give yourself a minimum of 3 options of how this situation can be resolved. And Yaakov shows us, future generations, how to deal with an enemy, with a trial, with a challenge. Number 1, daven to Hashem. Number 2, prepare for battle. Come ready to fight. Don't be a sitting duck. Don't be a loser. Don't be ready to be taken out. You've got to do what you can. And he prepares himself for battle. He places camps. He puts them in the right orders that he wants them to be able to be dispersed properly and on the flanks and on the rear and the front. And he's in the front of everybody. And he's got his kids who are now, in their teenagers years. They're the oldest ones are teenagers. But they can still fight. And Number 3, come with conciliatory gifts and kind words, which he then said would come with graciousness. So King Solomon uses this as a method of how to even raise children or how to go through any experience in life, is to have all options on the table. Don't come and say, that's it, you're getting a punishment. No, come with first kind words. If kind words don't work, then you might have to enact some discipline. And if that doesn't work, then you just daven to Hashem. Say, please help me. My children should be okay. So it's the same thing with everything. And that 3-pronged attack has been something that Jews have used throughout the centuries to be able to get by. Unfortunately, most of the time, the fighting has not been at our strongest point. But as you can see now in Israel, we do have the ability to fight back. We do have the ability to stand up strong. But we have to make sure that we're doing the davening to Hashem in component as well, not just relying on the tzahal and saying we have the big bombs, we know how to take care of our enemies, so that's all we need. No. Lo b'chayo v'lo b'koach ki im beruchi amar Hashem. We know that its strength that we have comes from Hashem, but also our ability to negotiate, our ability to show kindness should never be compromised by our enemy's actions. And perhaps that kindness will be so surprising to the enemy and so well received that you won't have to go to the battlefront. You won't have to deal with that. As my great uncle used to say, I think he only had one sermon, and he kept saying this one over and over again. And it was the Russians have the atom bomb, the Americans have the atom bomb. There are countries that have the hydrogen bomb. And we Jews, we have the V'dibarta bomb, which is in the Shema, which means, and you'll tell them. That's what V'dibarta bomb means. You will tell them. We have the power of our words. We have the power of our ability to speak the words of kindness, the words of Torah, the words of morality to the world that might not be used to it, but then might get pleasantly surprised when they hear it. And that's indeed what happens. Just to give you a spoiler, Yaakov does approach Esav with those 3 strategies. Primarily, he comes with peace, he comes with kindness, he comes with gifts. Mincha la'Esav, he's got a lot of gifts, and he gives them to Esav. And Esav kisses him, embraces him. Let's take a look inside. We're going to jump ahead because I'm going to come back to the story of the wrestling angel. But if you look at verse 13, sorry, verse 11 on page 211, page 210 in the Hebrew, Yaakov says, please accept my welcoming gift. This is middle of page 211 in the Hebrew. It's Vayomer elav Adoni Yodea ki eladim rakim. He says, God has been very kind to me. I have all that I need. Here, take these gifts as a gift to you. And Esav then says, let's travel together, walk alongside. We missed the part where he gives him a hug and gives him a kiss. And he welcomes him, shows him no ill will. He says, this is just how I travel, when he's asking why he's got the 400 men. This is my entourage, my posse. That's how I go. That's how I do things. But he gives them all the gifts. Interestingly, when Yaakov says, I have everything that I need, so therefore I can give you these extra, when he asks Esav, how about you? He says, I have a lot. But he doesn't say he has everything he needs. And in that, we see another distinction between the Esav and the Yaakov dynamic, which is Yaakov lives as a Jew should, which is Hashem has blessed me with what I need. Ezehu ashir hasameach bechelko. He is rich, is the one who's happy with what they have. And Yaakov was happy with what he has. He says, I don't need anything else. I'm content with my possessions at the moment. And Esav was, I have a lot, but I could use more. Yeshli Rav, I have much, but that's not enough. I still need a little bit more. He's basically bragging about his possessions, but not saying he has everything he needs. So that's another few things. Now, it's just interesting to note, if you want to look at the meeting that they have back on page 208, the third line of the bottom of 208, and then if you go to verse number 4. So Esav, seeing his brother prostrate himself, was deeply touched by his display of deference and abandoned any plan he had to attack Jacob. Instead, he ran towards him and embraced him wholeheartedly and threw himself on his neck, and he kissed him. Rashi says, but not wholeheartedly. He wasn't entirely overcome by emotion. From another perspective, Esav did kiss Yaakov wholeheartedly, but the spontaneous display of emotion was only fleeting, and they wept for joy and they embraced. So really beautiful ending of the story, that Esav, who wanted to kill him for so many years, for stealing his blessing, suddenly is overcome with emotion seeing his brother in this way. There are dots on top of Vayishlach in the Torah. If you look at that middle word, 3 lines from the bottom of 208, you'll see there are dots on top of that Hebrew word. And that's on the word which means, and he kissed him. It's almost like the Torah is putting an asterisk there, saying, oh, he kissed him, but it wasn't really a kiss. You got to beware sometimes of those kisses. It's like a Neville Chamberlain thinking that Hitler kissed, the leaders of Europe in 1939, 1938, that it was going to be peace. He came back and said, peace in our time, the famous, infamous line. And at the end of the day, that's the Esav kiss. Yes, we'll appreciate it. Yes, we'll acknowledge that he did have that moment. That's why Rashi says, but it was fleeting. And so therefore the asterisk is there not to be bought in, because when we kiss, when a Jew kisses, it's out of pure love. And it's because we want to reconcile, because we want to make shalom, and we want to get along forever. But when Esav kisses, it might be a different agenda, or it might just be short term. So we have to be wary. What's the expression about, hope for the best, but expect the worst? But it's also more than that. It's in being able to see that I shouldn't be naive in thinking that it's always going to be just amazing bliss with the enemy's sudden turnaround. Okay, that was all just a prelude to get to the most important part of tonight. I'd like to ask you, why did Esav suddenly have this turnaround? What did he see? What happened that because he came with 400 men to kill him. He did. And he had not forgotten about it. He said, as soon as my father Yitzchak dies, I'm going to take care of my brother Yaakov. He is not going to be the inheritor. He is not going to be the one who has the birthright. He's not going to be the continuation of Abraham and Yitzchak. It's going to be me. What made him change his mind? You think he had sympathy? Like a little compassion?
He saw it vision come true, where Yaakov did have a future with him.
So maybe he had a moment of divine inspiration where he saw the reality was going to be that Yaakov and Esav could work together. Yaakov would be the one who studied and the one who prayed and the one who built spiritual homes, and he would be the one conquering and building the material homes and the big builder. Maybe he saw that, possibly.
Maybe he realized that he has 400 men and Yaakov
It's just kids.
Just kids, and maybe that way might be the better way. It was really pretty impactful.
These are all excellent suggestions, and in our perspective, we would probably consider that if we were Esav. But Esav was not that. Esav was a guy who just had blood on his mind. He killed many people to take over. He killed Nimrod, who was the greatest king the civilized world at that time had known. And he did it in just a quick moment and stole his jacket so he would have that special coat of Adam. He didn't have any issue with killing us if it interfered with his power. So there was almost no chance that Yaakov would have been able to survive this. This is what the sages teach us. And this is throughout history. We've seen this, and it's one of the most powerful lessons for a Jew to know in today's times as well. So if you go back to the story, this mysterious story of Jacob wrestling this angel. So he goes back, he sets up his family, and then he says, guys, I have to go back. I left some small jars behind by the river Yabok, by where our last rest area was. I left some possessions there. And so he said, I got to go back and get them. And on page 207, verse 25, it says, Jacob remained on his own on the north shore of the Yabok River. Esau's guardian angel assumed the physical form of a man and wrestled with him until the break of dawn. The wrestling was a physical manifestation of the two brothers' inner spiritual struggle over the birthright. When Esau's guardian angel saw he could not overcome him, he touched Jacob's hip point so that Jacob's hip became dislocated as he wrestled with him. The angel then said, send me on my way. The dawn is breaking. But Jacob replied, I will not send you on my way unless you first bless me. And the angel asked, what is your name? And he answered, Jacob. And then he said, no longer will your name be Jacob, but it will be called Israel. For you have striven with me, you have fought, wrestled with me, and you have prevailed. And with God and with men, and you have prevailed. And that became Yaakov's new name. Yisrael became the name of the Jewish people. Yaakov inquired and said, please tell me your name. He replied, why do you ask what my name is? And that was it. Basically, as if you don't need to know my name, it's just about your name. And your name has to change from here on in. So this was a moment in Yaakov's life that might seem like just a nice, cute fantasy story of wrestling an angel. It was much more than that. Yaakov was wrestling with his identity. Who am I? Am I Yaakov, or am I trying to be Esau? Am I my own person, or am I always going to try and be my brother? If you think about it, Yaakov's name is Yaakov because he grabbed the heel of his brother. His very name was, I want him out of the way. I want to be first. That's his name. He carried that with him wherever he went. I am the heel of my brother. I'm grabbing the heel of my brother. And then what happens as soon as he can? Sell me your birthright. I want to be you. I want to be in your position. And then what happens next? He gets the blessing. He sneaks in there and he gets the blessing. So if I'm Esau, I'm like, what do I have to do to get rid of this guy who's trying to usurp me? He's trying to replace me. He's trying to become me. He's trying to basically take over me. So the only way I can deal with that is if I get rid of him. Besides, I can't live like this with someone trying to be me all day and all night from his birth. He's trying to take over to become me. It's very threatening. Comes along, and Esau sees Yaakov, now named Yisrael, having wrestled with an angel and prevailed, to discover who he really is. He's not Yaakov anymore. He's not the guy who needs to grab Esau's position. He is Yisrael. He is the founder of the 12 tribes of Israel. He is going to start his own nation that's going to become the chosen people, the great ones who are connected to Hashem in ways that Esau will never know. And he had a limp because it's hard. It's a struggle. It's a battle to stay that position. It takes a toll on your body. You can't be the strong Esau if you're in Yaakov's shoes, as the spiritual leaders of the world. You'll get hit a little bit here and there, and it won't be because you're strong physically. It'll be because you're strong spiritually. This guy shows up to Esau, and Esau looks at him and says, okay, you're not the guy who is trying to usurp me anymore. You've changed. You've become something else. No, it's because he was now Yisrael. Esau saw it. He saw in his whole being that Yaakov wasn't trying to. It's something that is more than just a physical or a verbal or a articulated thing. He saw that he wasn't trying to be Esav anymore. He was happy with who he was. And maybe all of your answers were true. He has a focus on his family. He has a focus on his children. He has a focus on what's holy and spiritual in the world. And he's like, I now know who I am, my brother Esav, and it's okay. I don't have to be you. And Esav said, finally, you're letting me be me. Here's the amazing thing. Esav goes off and he goes to Seir. He says, okay, so you're not trying to take over. I'm going to start my own country. I'm going to start my own dynasty. And he goes there, and the rest of the Torah portion is talking about how Esav is building his family and his whole dynasty and his whole legacy. And Yaakov goes back to Israel and continues with his. If you go back to the blessing that Isaac gave Yaakov, what made it so scary for Esav was the blessing that Isaac gave to Yaakov was not a blessing that you will become the spiritual crown of the world. You will become the moral guide for the world. The blessing that Isaac gave was the blessing he was supposed to give to Esav, which is, I will bless you with the fat of the land. You will be successful in agriculture. You will be successful in working in the physical world. That was the blessing that Esav should have got. But Rivka knew that Esav, if he got that whole blessing, would have done very poorly with it, because he never would have done what Yaakov could have done with that blessing, which is to go into the physical world and to make it holy and to turn it into something that was dedicated to God. But anyway, back to now, Yaakov comes back and he says, you can have the Vayitzin Lacha, you can have the land, you can have the produce, you can have all of the material success. You take it, go, do it in Seir. I'm going to go back to my tent to study, to raise my family. Yisrael is the name of the Jewish people. We're not called Bnei Yaakov. We're not called the children of Yaakov. We're called Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel. The country of Israel is not called Yaakov. It's called Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Am Yisrael, the nation, is not called Am Yaakov. We're called Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel. Why? Because only once he became Yisrael did he become clear on who he was and how he was supposed to live his life, showing the role model acts to the rest of the world. Not, I have to become you, Esav, to be successful. The amazing thing is, we sometimes wonder what anti-Semites, what drives them, why they hate Jews so much. You just have to go back to the story. Say, perhaps one of the reasons why they hate us so much is because we keep trying to be them. We come to every country and we out-goy the goy. We do. We become more successful in their fields, in the things that they're supposed to be good at, in the things that they're supposed to be running. Why are they screaming that we're running the government? Leave the government to us, they say. It's our government, it's our country. Why are you trying to take over? We're Esav. Let us be Esav. You be Yaakov. You lead in the fields of morality, of kindness, of goodness, and even of inventing things that help people save lives and so on. Do those things that Yaakov does. Leave the powerful leadership and control to us. That's Esav. But every generation comes, and the Jews get very successful, and we go into that world. And it's not only that we stay as Yisrael, even as leaders, we become very much like the Gentiles in our clothing, in our talking, in our thinking, in our acting. It's almost hard to tell who the Jew and who the Gentile is. We have mastered the art of being extremely successful and good Gentiles. We've mastered it. We're professional at it. So how could they not be bothered when they? And that's why the anti-Semites say, "You will not replace us." They're right. They're right. They're saying the point that we are we're not staying in our lane. You're going into my lane. We can't help it. We have the blessing of Yitzchak that says you will also be successful in the fields. You will also be successful in agriculture. You will also be successful in industry. We can't help it. But at the very core of it is, who are we? Are we Yaakov trying to grab Esav so that we can say, we became successful in America, we became successful in Spain, we became the most successful Germans the world has ever seen? The Germans, by the way, the German Jews were so proud of the German accomplishments. They felt in their mind that they were more German than the Germans. And there would never be a situation where they would be oppressed and they would be persecuted. They need us. That's fine. You can get those blessings, but stay true to Yisrael. Come knowing who you are, as after you've wrestled with the angel, after you've wrestled with yourself, you've wrestled with your identity. Who am I? I know I am Yisrael, and this is my family, and this is my morals, and this is my identity. I will not become Esav. I do not seek to become Esav. I am determined to stay Yisrael, and if I do, then the world will respect me for it. As the well-known saying of Jonathan Sacks says, a Jew who respects themselves, the world will respect too. Doesn't mean they love, but they will respect. Because if we have self-respect, then the world has self-respect, has respect for us too. And so this is the fundamental difference between Yaakov, first chunk of his life, and Yisrael in the second half of his life. And so I think that what we can take from here is, we always have to remember that we are Jews first and foremost. And as much as people don't like hearing it, and people are bothered that, oh, you got dual loyalties and stuff. No, we're not dual loyalties. It's our family. This is who I am. This is what I represent. If you think it's dual loyalty to have a connection to my family and to my teachings and to my morals, then I'm sorry. That's your issue. But what it comes from is us knowing who we are and knowing what we stand for. And I just wanted to share with this idea, this sort of metaphor in Jewish folklore. So you heard the story of Rabbi Twersky? Well, before I get to the story of Rabbi Twersky, Rabbi Dr. Twersky, there was a fellow who was once on a train, and he was going to sleep because they had compartments where they could sleep overnight on this train. But it was in his compartment was a Russian general as well, and he was obviously very respectful, didn't want to upset him. They both go to sleep. He says to the conductor, he says, "Do me a favor. I have to get off at the stop at 4 a.m. I don't want to sleep through it. Could you come into my compartment at 3:45 a.m. and wake me up, but don't wake up the general because I don't want him to get upset or he'll take it out on me. Just please, just be careful to wake me up, and that's it." So he says, fine. So he comes in 3:45. He says, gotta wake up for your stop. And he wakes up. He's still very tired, like my kids at 6:30 when they wake up for school. They're very tired, just like stumbling out of bed. And he, by accident, he puts on the general's clothes because they were both, wearing the pajamas. So he puts on the general's pants, the general's jacket, the general's hat, and he stumbles out of the train. And as he gets out of the train, he notices everybody's looking at him really funny. Some people are saluting him. Some people are like acknowledging him. And he's like, oh, a special guy. What happened? He doesn't know what happened. Anyway, he comes home and his wife says, oh my gosh, what's with your clothes? What are you wearing? He goes to the mirror. He looks in the mirror. He's like, oh my goodness, the conductor, he woke up the general instead of me. So that's the problem. It's like the guy, when he's doesn't know who he is. He's forgetting things. So he decides to wear a red toe around a red thread around his big toe. So I'll never forget who he is. He was very absent-minded. He lost everything. So he could find everything, but he couldn't find who he was. So the red string would remind him. One time he's in the mikvah, and he's with, this falls off his toe, the string falls off his toe, and it slips on somebody else's toe. Looks at the guys. I know who you are, but who am I? So that's the story of Yaakov and Yisrael, not knowing who we are, trying to be somebody else, trying to jump. Rabbi Twersky's story, and we'll finish with this. He was on a bus. I think he was on a bus. Maybe he was just walking down the street, and there was a lady that was Jewish, obviously, and she even spoke Yiddish. And she came up to him because he had a black hat, he had a long white beard, even some payas. He was a psychiatrist, but he was Hasidic. And she came over to him and says, "It's a shanda. It's a shanda. It means it's an embarrassment." He says, "What?" He says, you're dressed like this for? You're dressed like some ancient, archaic person. We're in America now. It's embarrassing for me to see you like this. You should wear normal clothes like the rest of us. Stop thinking like you're in Poland in the 1920s. And she's giving him like a whole piece of his mind, like, So he is listening, and he's quiet. And then when she finally finishes her tirade, he says, "I'm sorry, I do not understand your verbiage. I am Amish." So she says, "Oh, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I actually have tremendous respect for you and your people and how you've managed to maintain your discipline and your heritage and traditions for so long, despite all the outside influences. I really am apologizing for my outburst." To which Rabbi Twersky said, "Actually, I'm not Irish. I'm not Amish. I'm Jewish. But if I was Amish, you would be okay. It would be fine with you. You'd have no problem. Only because I'm a Jew, you're embarrassed. Only because it's you, it's me, that you feel this shame. Why are you so ashamed to be who you are, one of us?" And we all have a little bit of this. We all have little kids tell me, "I can't wear a yarmulke." But you see the Muslims wearing a hijab, he's no problem. She's no problem. They're wearing their beards without a mustache and their hats and everything else. And they're proud of it. And you're like, oh. So actually lately I've been really impressed. A whole young generation of kids wearing their Star of Davids and Chais out publicly since October 7th has been a much stronger. We'll get there with the yarmulkes and everything, tzitzis, we'll get there. But in the meantime, they're showing, I am Yaakov, I'm Yisrael. But we have to remember that our success comes from being Israel, not from being the Yaakov grabbing at Esav's heel. Not that they will accept us when we become finally successful in that country. And we have, fortunately, we've been influenced by this for generations. We came to America and our mothers said, "You're going to go, you'll be successful, you'll get into these colleges." And why? Because a lot of those places we weren't allowed to go. We were sort of restricted from for the fact that we were Jews. So that we made it in those places became, all right, you did it. We did it. We got to where we were supposed to get. And there's good, all good. But not to take the place of Esav, not to be them, not to take that role. We are Yisrael, and we take that stand. I remember walking in when I was in year 12, and I was in a class that 12th grade, we do things that 12th graders do, seniors do. So even though we're from school, religious school, we would sometimes go pool parlors, different places, have a beer. One time, a group of my friends said, "Let's go to the Pulse nightclub." So it was called Pulse. So the nightclub, I'd never been to a nightclub. This would be a cool experience, Walk in. I'm wearing tzitzis. I'm wearing a yarmulke. And I just looked around. I'm like, yeah, no, it's not the place for me. And a few people I saw like looking at me like, "Oh, what's that guy? What's he wearing? What's that?" And I realized I wasn't comfortable. And I said, "Guys, I'm just gonna head out." And they go, "Oh, it's okay, fine." So I left. And I realized after that story, was it because I was wearing the tzitzis? Was it because I was wearing the yarmulke? Was it because I realized I can't fully become Esav? I'm never going to fully become that in a comfortable way. I'm not going to be comfortable in my own skin. And I'm not going to think it's cool because I was able to. No, it's not cool. It's not necessary. It's not something I should feel that I have to finally become to make it in life. I'm Yisrael. I hang out in different places. I do different things. I have different focuses. I have different objectives. And that was actually a big turning point for me that night in saying, I am who I am. Other kids in my class, they shaved their beards, they made hairstyles. I said, no, I keep my beard. It's who I am. And that was to me the little Yisrael moment in that 17-year-old little period where you are very, very influenced by peer pressure. But we've always been small in number as Jews, always. So peer pressure just doesn't factor in. It does not factor in as Jews. We've always stood out. Now, this isn't the only cause for anti-Semitism. I just want to make that clear. This is not the only cause for anti-Semitism at all, but it is one of the more recent ones, the recent adaptations of it, because it stems from here. It stems from this story. Other reasons for anti-Semitism is Amalek, which Amalek wasn't worried about taking over his position. Amalek just hated anything that was godly. Amalek, like Hitler said, the Jews were the cause of two great inflictions on the human being, one on the body and one on the soul. They inflicted circumcision on the body, and they inflicted a conscience on the soul. That's in Mein Kampf, and as a result of that, we can't tolerate them. And that's unfortunately what you realize that who gave all of Western civilization their morals and all of the proper behavior of how to live, sanctity of human life, abolishing slavery, all came. What's in the famous lines of the entire American Constitution, Bill of Rights? Everything is established on Torah lines. Torah lines, which is proclaim liberty throughout the land. We have kindness for the downtrodden. All these things are Jewish. In God we trust. All these things are Jewishly built. So anyone who's opposed to that kind of tolerance, which mind you, a lot of people say they are tolerant, but they need to oppress people. They need to have control. They need to have hierarchy, because most of the world was functioning like that for years. Rome and Greece, as much as we think they were civilized societies, they had Holocaust. They were killing anybody they wanted to. They would, for sport, throw a man's head into a lion because that was fun for them. So when Jews came along and said, there's rules, guys. There's morals. You can't just throw away human life like that, even if it's someone who's not as worthy as you. There was always an Amalek that said, don't bring that into the equation. We want to rule things the way we want to rule things. We want to oppress who we want to oppress. Don't give us the guilty conscience, as Hitler said. But that's a separate anti-Semitism. But here, the Esav one, he has a point. No one wants to be taken over. Be who we are meant to be. It might take a wrestling match to get there. We might get injured in the process. Have a bit of a limp. And it's not fun to have a limp. It's not fun to not be the strongest in the room. But know what our strength is. Know what we're here for. And it took Yaakov many years till he finally had this wrestling moment. And then it says, it was dawn. He woke up, he saw the light. He saw it was really revealed to him for the first time, because this wrestling match was happening during the nighttime when it was dark and he didn't know what was going on. He was confused and he was by himself because he couldn't do this with his family. He had to come to the realization on his own. And he asked him to bless him. He said, you're going to be Yisrael from now on, because that's who you really are. And he asked him, who are you? He said, it doesn't matter who I am. I'm the one who helped you discover this. The one who helped you realize this.
How old